Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And joining me, my buddy, my co-host, my friend, Steven Young of Roto Grinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're previewing the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway here on Running Hot. 2 weeks ago was the last points-paying race, and that was at Kansas. Kyle Larson swept the stages and took the race win, finishing ahead of Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney in a bit of an adventurous Kansas race that, unfortunately for me, saw a couple of blown tires, namely to William Byron, Brad Keselowski. I was on both of them to have very strong races on bets, and they both blew tires while running in second place. So a bit of an unfortunate result there for me. So there was Kansas. Then last weekend, the All-Star race, Christopher Bell was able to pass Joey Logano late in the race using two tires to Joey Logano staying out, able to get by Joey Logano and win the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. So Stevie, let's start with Kansas, then we'll talk All-Star race. What were your thoughts from Kansas?
Kyle Larson is in a league of his own on 1.5s this year. I mean, he's ranked first in speed at Vegas, Texas, and Kansas. And there, I mean, you could touch him, I think, at Kansas, but I don't know if anybody was beating him at Kansas. I think Keselowski probably had the best chance. Keselowski had a lot of speed in that race car. So I think Keselowski probably would have had the best chance had he not had the tire go down. But, I mean, Kyle Larson just in a league of his own right now when we go to these intermediates. I mean, we saw a little bit of speed out of Chase. We saw a little bit of speed out of Byron. We saw a little bit of speed out of Keselowski. But, I mean, it's the same thing that we've been saying all year. Hendrick is incredible right now, and Ford has something figured out in the long run. So, yeah, I mean, that Kansas was exactly what we kind of thought it was going to be.
And, Stevie, let me toot my own horn here for a moment. Because the practice data from Kansas, I do my flags every week, and you post it in the Roto Grinders practice section of your Roto Grinders package. Number one in flags was Kyle Larson, by far clearing away number one in flags. Number two was basically a neck and neck tie between William Byron and Brad Keselowski, and they both were running second when they blew tires. How important is practice, right? So that just goes to show the importance of practice and how good the practice flags metric is. So I was very happy with my analysis, especially post-practice analysis of that race. Obviously, the bets didn't work out because of things out of your control, my control, anybody's control, even Keselowski and Byron's control. But yeah, I think the 1.5 miles have become something we can figure out, but of course we're coming to Charlotte this weekend. We'll talk about in a little bit. It will be a little different for Charlotte just given the circumstances. But let's transition here to the All-Star race, Stevie, because I know there's a lot of talk about North Wilkesboro and should it host a points-paying race. What do you think of the racing there, and what do you think of the prospects of North Wilkesboro becoming a points-paying race eventually?
Yeah, I mean, they repaved it last year. We saw 2-3 grooves. Still really tough to pass the leader with this short track package. I mean, Joey Logano was really, really fast and just could not get around there for the lead. So, I don't know. Yes, I think it needs a points-paying race, first of all. Second, I mean, middle of the day, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like not a night race. I want as much slipping and sliding. Let's just be honest. Let's get rid of a Martinsville race. Martinsville with the next-gen car has been atrocious. We all love Martinsville. It's a historic racetrack. But I think North Wilkesboro deserves a point-paying race. I think the promoter's caution was dumb for what it's worth. I mean, like, I don't love gimmicks. I get, like, the entertainment part of the business. But, like, not for $1 million. The racing was good. I mean, it was good racing. Joey Logano wins, and he had the best car, so he should have won that race. So I'm happy for C. Bell. I like Christopher Bell a lot, so I'm happy for him, but I don't like the gimmicks. I thought the racing was really good. I thought Joey was probably more frustrated with the caution than he was with like how Bell passed him, because, I mean, Joey in the same situation is doing the same exact thing, and I don't think Bell really wrecked him. I think Bell passed him how you have to pass on a short track when you have tires and the guy in front of you doesn't. So,
And with this car, right? Like,
yeah,
it's so hard to
yeah,
pass with this car. That's kind of what you just have to do. And honestly, I watched it back a few times. They may not even have touched. It was close, but Bell kind of forced them up there, and he just kind of forced them up and forced them up. But I
yeah.
actually don't think they touched, which is interesting. And Joey did, to his credit, walk back his comments about the pass itself, saying, yeah, that was not as bad as I thought it was. So, yeah, all fair there. But we got through the All-Star race weekend. Now it's back to points-paying races for the rest of the season. This weekend is Motorsports Christmas, Monaco Grand Prix in the morning for Formula One fans, Indy 500 in the middle of the day for you IndyCar fans, closing at night with the Coca-Cola 600, which is what we're going to be talking about. Stevie, even before we talk Coke 600, just talk about the best day in racing.
Yeah, I mean, you wake up and you watch racing all day. And for you and I, we absolutely love it. Hoping and fingers crossed that like there's no weather in Indy and we get to see Kyle Larson actually go for the double this year. Because I hate to tell everybody, but had there not been humidity last year for the 600 and Kyle Larson got 150 laps in that race car, he probably would have won that race. He was really good, and I hate to tell the Indy 500 cars, but now that Larson has a year under his belt and he understands it a little bit more, he's going to be better than he was last year. I don't think he'll win, but I mean, he is one of the best drivers in the world, so it wouldn't shock me if he won. But
Sure.
Monaco is probably my least favorite of the group, only just because like qualifying matters so much at Monaco because of, you just can't really pass there. So like that race is almost decided during qualifying for the win more than anything else. I know I was looking at it earlier, and it's like you have three drivers that are probably going to be up there competing for Verstappen in the McLaren cars. But overall, I mean, I always get super excited for the Indy 500, and I love the Coke 600. This is the first time I've not going to the Coke 600 in like 10 years, though. It's really weird, like going to be able to enjoy this race day at home. I'm used to watching like the Indy 500 like in the media center at the Charlotte racetrack. So a little different for me, but yeah, I mean it's just an awesome day overall of racing. Yeah, I mean it's fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So, of course, it concludes with the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Charlotte, another 1.5 mile track. Each of the last three races we've been to, Texas, Kansas, and now Charlotte, are 1.5 miles. So we got some good data at these 1.5 miles, Stevie, as we talked about. Talk about racing at Charlotte and also talk about just how you're kind of using comparable tracks and handicapping this.
Well, one thing that I am like somewhat a little concerned about Charlotte is what we saw at Kansas in practice. This is the same left side tire. We didn't run this left side tire at Charlotte last year, and we saw like the higher speeds of Kansas really kind of affect this tire when teams were being super aggressive. Even Keselowski, I think like he was super fast in the race, and we saw him have issues in practice, and maybe they pushed it a little bit in the race because they weren't as used to being up front in cleaner air and moving as much through the field. So I mean, I'm a little interested in that. We did have like a tire test here: Chase Briscoe, William Byron, Ryan Blaney. So they definitely have an advantage. They have a whole day of running on this racetrack with the tires and setups and stuff. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But to go back to your original question of like, how do we comp Charlotte? I mean, Charlotte is a 600-mile race. It's kind of its own thing. It's 400 laps. It's one of the longest 1.5s we have of the year. We talk about Darlington and how it's kind of its own race because it's 500 miles, high tire wear. If we're looking at data, I think we just kind of group like Texas, Las Vegas, Kansas, and look at those 1.5s to get some idea. Charlotte data, practice is, that's the answer. Look at practice data.
That's right. Look at practice. Check out my flags, practice data, because it's definitely at the 1.5 mile tracks has been super useful. But that said, you're right. Like this race, this 600 is going to be interesting because, and I'll throw this in our intangibles section, it's going to be in the upper 60s, mid 60s, probably come evening time. Maybe it'll tickle 70 degrees, but that's going to be relatively cool for, this time of year. And it's going to be overcast. It's going to be around 50% humidity. So the speeds are going to be very high because the air is going to be dense, and that creates a lot of downforce, which helps you keep that corner speed, but it also puts these cars on the ragged edge. So I think we could see a bit of a chaotic race. And like you said, 600 miles. That's aside from the Southern 500. I think it's the only non-drafting oval that's more than 400 miles. I might be wrong, but I believe it is. And it's even longer than the Southern 500 by 100 extra miles. So you're right. This is its own unique beast. And it produces, at least in the next gen era especially, some extra variants, and even going before the next gen era. I mean, we've seen some surprise winners of this. Austin Dillon, you might consider a surprise winner. We've seen Casey Mears win this race. So, I think this is a spot where these winners could be a little bit unexpected, but even if it's not an unexpected winner, we could have some unexpected things, drivers pop up into that top 10 as well. So I think it's going to be a fun race. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun race as well. I think the 1.5s with multiple groove 1.5 racetracks are just kind of bread and butter.
Yeah.
I almost wish they'd get rid of the Roval and just run 2 oval races here at Charlotte, because I think this is a really good racetrack for this car. But if you look at who's won in the next gen era, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell. So,
Blaney was 20-1. Blaney was 20-1.
Yeah, that is true. And Bell, I really think Keselowski might have gotten Bell last year. And if Larson got in the car, Bell was fast last year, but I don't know if he was the best car. So, overall, it's typically drivers you expect to do well, who's really good at making adjustments day to night. Those types of crew chiefs. We'll talk a lot about Paul Wolf this week. We'll talk a lot about these guys that are really good at adjusting. Adam Stevens, that's why Bell was so well. So, there's crew chiefs that are going to do really well as this racetrack progresses. Cliff Daniels is another one. So, those are your intangibles and your comps and stuff. It's just who is going to be good for 400 laps and be consistent and not have pit road penalties and all that stuff. There's a lot of factors.
I'll tell you another one. James Small for Chase Briscoe. They've made a lot of really good adjustments at Kansas and came on at the end of the race there. Similarly with Homestead. So that's a team that's been closing really well and making adjustments. And you give them 200 extra miles to make adjustments. I think we could see some noise from Chase Briscoe. And hey, he and Kyle Larson were battling for the lead in 2022 in the 600, causing one of the late cautions there. So, and Chase Briscoe still ended up finishing 4th. So could be a good race here for Chase Briscoe. But it is time to dive into our bets. As always, we're going to drive through the race stage by stage. We'll give a pick in stage 1 as our shorter odds bet. Then another pick in stage 2 as our longer odds bet. And for the Coca-Cola 600, since it is a 4-stage race, stages 3 and 4 will be our 2 victory lane picks for me and Stevie. So it is time to throw the green flag on the Coca-Cola 600 and fire off for stage 1. Stage 1, Stevie, we have talked about this guy a lot so far on this podcast. You're going to hear a lot about this guy all weekend. What do you got in stage 1?
Last to go out in qualifying, fastest car on intermediates this year, Kyle Larson, plus 550. The only reason we're getting Kyle Larson at plus 550 is because he's running the Indy 500 before this race. I will stand by that. There's no reason that Kyle Larson should be plus 550. If you look at his speeds this year, like I said, he's been the fastest at Texas. He was fastest at Kansas. He was the fastest at Vegas. So you look at what he's done on 1.5s this year. He's averaged 124 laps led, 42 fastest laps. The next highest is 20 fastest laps by Tyler Reddick. He has just been the car. I don't necessarily love betting drivers at plus 550, but I have a few favorites, and I'm on your pick that's coming up as well for an outright. So I bet 3 outrights this week. Kyle Larson at plus 550, I'm in. I just don't think it's going to get lower than this. I think it's just going to move the wrong direction. If something happens and he's late to getting to the racetrack and he starts this race late, it's 400 laps. Again, I really think Larson in that rain delay with 140 laps to go last year or whatever it was, like legitly had a chance to come out and win the race. So yeah, I mean, I'm just on Larson. I'm betting on the speed more than anything else, and that's going to be my stage 2 pick too. Is I'm just kind of betting on some speed here early in the week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's been the best 1.5 miles by far. But I get why he's plus 550, and I actually don't think it has to do with the Indy 500. I think it has to do with the fact that it's a 600-mile race. It's at night. We haven't had a night race yet at mile-and-a-half tracks. And this tends to be a chaotic race, and I think we're going to see chaotic conditions, which makes strategy, alternate things, wrong timing of a caution. I mean, this race has had 18 and 16 and what was it in 20 and 7, but it was rain shortened cautions in the next gen era. This is going to be chaotic, and I actually think that gives these guys. Look, think about 2022. Daniel Suarez was leading for a chunk. Chase Briscoe had a chance to win. Ross Chastain, these are all guys that are in the 20s or 30s or even longer to 1 to win back in 2022, right? And last year, Keselowski was around 20 to 1 to win this. Blaney won it when he was 20 to 1. So this is a race that I think is a little more wide open. So I'm not there on Kyle Larson at 550, but I get it because he is far and away number 1 in speed. And I'm not saying it's a bad bet at all. I just have my reasons why I understand, what I'm saying, why it is plus 550.
Oh yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, think about how much he dominated this race in 2021 with that Hendrick car. Like, what did he led like 100 or like 300 and something laps, but I don't think it's going to. Yeah, Truex performance was wild. I was there for that race too, and that was, what was that, 2019?
Yeah, stunk up the show. Led
2017, something like that.
388 of the 400 laps. I think it was the most miles ever led in a NASCAR race.
It was wild, but yeah, I mean, overall for me, when I'm looking at it, I'm betting on the speed more than anything else here.
Yeah, I don't blame you because he should definitely be number 1 in speed. But I talked a little bit about the randomness, the wildness, the chaos of this potential race. So I'm going to take, for my stage 1 pick, over 12.5 drivers to lead a lap. You can get that at minus 115. I know Caesars has it. I know ESPN has it. And I'll say this, I am not going to track it in the Action Network app because I tracked a highly correlated bet that I liked better, which was over 27.5 lead changes. Caesars took that down after a bunch of my listeners, followers in the Action app bet it. But this is another way to play that, and it's the same reasoning. So over 12.5 drivers to lead a lap, minus 115. If you didn't get the over 27.5 lead changes, I would take this one. The number of leaders in the next gen era in the 600 have been 13 in 2022, 13 in 2023, and 10 in 2024, but that was in 249 laps. And this is going to be a 400 lap race. There's no weather to worry about for this race. So that 10 leaders in 249 laps would scale to about 16 over 400 laps. Now, I don't think it perfectly scales that way, but you see the idea that it probably should have been over 12.5. And that was with what I'll call the boring Coca-Cola 600, because the drivers that finished at the top of stage 1 all finished at the top of stage 2, all finished at the top of stage 3, if you look at the final results there. But 2022 and 2023 had a lot of variance between stages 1, 2, 3 and the finish. And I think that's more what we're going to see at this time around, just given the conditions here. So I like over 12.5 liters. Now, Stevie, with you being on Larson and him being so far ahead of the field this year at 1.5 miles, maybe that's the wrong bet to make, but I still like it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of racetrack where you make this bet because you're going to have different strategies play out during green flag pit stops. You're going to have different strategies play out when you have cautions. I mean, you mentioned how many lead changes. I mean, last year was a rain shortened race, and there's still 21 lead changes, and I think there was 10 drivers that led at least one lap. So, like, when you scale that, if we get a race going back green, I mean, yeah, there's so much strategy potential. And like, we're talking more betting, but like when we get into our DFS stuff, this is one of the harder tracks DFS wise because of all the strategy and stuff that plays out here. So, yeah, I mean, the randomness, the variance, all that stuff, the strategies. Yeah, I don't hate this.
Alrighty, so stage 1 recap. Stevie on Kyle Larson to win plus 550, and I have over 12.5 drivers to lead a lap at minus 115. We're going to throw the green and white checkered on stage 1, fill up, get some new tires, fire off for stage 2. Stage 2, you mentioned it, Stevie, you had 3 picks to win. This is your second one. What do you got?
Yeah, second and third, because the other one is one that you have coming up right after this. So I have Ryan Blaney at 8-1 to win this race. Eventually, this guy's gonna have a race where he doesn't get unlucky. He has been by far the best car on long runs all year on any type of racetrack. I'll argue that with anybody. Like, his speed has just been absolutely incredible this year, and eventually he's just going to not have that issue. Like, he keeps having issues. I feel like it's always something. He's proven that he can win this race, which is always a good sign when you're looking at this race. I mean, he won this race here in 2023. So the fact that he's already proved that he can win this race, and that was in 2023, we were like, whoa, that was kind of out of nowhere. That wasn't like, Ryan Blaney is going to, like you said, what'd you say? He was like 20-1. Like, and now we're like looking at an 8-1 going, maybe these odds are too low, like, or too high. Like, he's just been so incredibly fast. And again, I think eventually he's going to have a race where it all just kind of clicks, and why not here? Penske is going to be fast. Ford's fast in the long run. And we haven't talked about a ton about it, but again, like, qualifying on these 1.5s, it only gets better as you go through, and he's going to be third to last out with Bell and Larson. So, that should give him good track position, which potentially hurts his number as far as outright. So I'm jumping on this one early in the week. And again, just kind of betting on speed here. I like some outrights, and that's where I'm at this week.
Yeah, I initially in stage 1, and I didn't end up making this my official pick, but I initially had Ford to win as a stage 1 pick, and Blaney is part of that because I think there's an angle here with the weather, which is part of the angle I played with Blaney in 2023. But Ford, after 2023, changed their body and became even more, I would say, aerodynamic in a straight line, which is why you see them qualify so well at super speedways. But they sacrifice a little bit of downforce for that. And in a night race with cooler temps and high humidity, that extra air density is going to help them produce that downforce. So they're going to get that naturally from the conditions, the weather conditions, which I think will help Ford. So I think that'll help Ryan Blaney, and I think that'll help my stage 2 pick here, Stevie. That is Brad Keselowski to win, 30-1 at BetMGM. I also like his top Ford. You can get that plus 750 at DraftKings or at Caesars. Brad Keselowski finished this race second last year, and you mentioned it. He definitely had a chance to win this race last year. And an interesting fact that Jordan McAbee of Rotoballer pointed out to me, there's only one full-time driver in the field that has multiple wins at Charlotte, and that's Brad Keselowski. So even more reason to like him. And we just saw Brad Keselowski arguably have the best car at Kansas. Now, Kyle Larson did, but Brad Keselowski flat out passed Larson on that run where he got the second place and was closing on Chase Elliott for first place. And he was pulling away from Kyle Larson. So there's an argument to be made that Keselowski actually did have the best car there. It would have been interesting to see if he didn't blow his tire, what would have happened. But the point stands, whether he had the best car or the second best car or the third best car, he was the top 3 or 4 car at worst at Kansas, another mile and a half that we just came from. Could have won this race last year, has multiple wins here, and he's 30-1. And he's in a Ford where I think the conditions should help the Fords. So Brad Keselowski, 30-1 to win, 7.5-1 top Ford. And I know you like it because you said he's your third outright, right?
Yeah, so I'm on this one as well. I think that we've seen a lot of positive things from Brad Keselowski over the last month. He, again, like Ryan Blaney, he's had some unlucky situations. You talked about 2 weeks ago when we were at the Kansas race. Like, he came on really strong, and like Jeremy Bolins is another guy that makes really aggressive calls, and he, has the upside. They work really well together, especially when they were at Penske. So I think this is a high upside spot for Keselowski. So this is one of those ones where, like, all right, 30-1, I'm in. It's a long enough race that I'm not too concerned about him going out fifth in qualifying.
Yeah.
I definitely, if he qualifies bad, for what it's worth, I will jump on like some top 10 odds on him as well.
Yep.
Just because I do think that he's going to have top 10 speed, and we've seen him have top 10 speed, and he was fifth in speed here last year and really had a chance to win that race had it gone back green.
Absolutely. And the only other driver with multiple wins at Charlotte, no longer full-time, 7-time, Jimmy Johnson. So he will be in this race as well. It'll be exciting to see Jimmy Johnson get his 700th career start. So to recap, stage 2, Stevie is on Ryan Blaney, 8-1 to win, and I'm on Brad Keselowski, and Stevie is too. Brad Keselowski to win 30-1, and I'm also on top forward at 7.5 to 1 for BK. So that completes stage 2. Stages 3 and 4, we're going to throw them together here as our victory lane picks, and we're turning to 2 Hendrick Motorsports drivers. So Stevie, give us our third and fourth stage picks, aka our victory lane picks.
Yeah, I like both of these. We got William Byron for a top 5 and Alex Bowman for a top 10. Alex Bowman has just been very, very consistent this year.
Yes.
Just consistently running inside the top 10 on every single racetrack. And this is even money. I don't think it's going to necessarily get better, so I bet it. You seem to be on it as well. He goes out really late in qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about Alex Bowman this year in general. It would not shock me if Alex Bowman wins this race. I think it's coming. I think that I think we've seen more speed from Alex Bowman than we do for Chase Elliott right now. So I really like where Alex Bowman is at.
Yes.
And then William Byron, we're getting a top 5 bet here at plus 140, but this guy is first in speed in the next gen car here at Charlotte, top 5 in every race here as far as speed is concerned. I know last year we saw him run up towards the front a lot in that race. He was really fast. And then if we just look at the high-speed intermediates from the beginning of last year, I mean, this guy has 5 top 5 finishes in 9 races. He continues to be first in speed, even though Larson's been incredibly fast this year. Like William Byron, since the start of last year, first in speed on high-speed intermediates. So even if we look at this year, I mean, this guy has been extremely fast on high-speed intermediates this year, third overall in speed. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just, again, like, both of these guys have been really consistently good, and I mean, I like both of them. So this was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on both of these drivers. Alex Bowman, like you mentioned, just incredibly consistent. Now, you said might even be better than Chase Elliott. I think he has been better than Chase Elliott on speed.
Yeah.
He hasn't had as much luck, right? Chase Elliott has not had a result worse than 20th, but Alex Bowman is at a 26th, a 27th, 2 35ths, and a 37th. But a lot of that has been bad luck. Bristol having a cylinder drop. Texas getting caught up in Bubba Wallace's incident, right? There's been Atlanta just being Atlanta, right? And Alex Bowman has more stage points than Chase Elliott, which I think is a good gauge a lot of times of how well you've been running this year. 1.5 mile tracks, he has been absolutely phenomenal. Texas, again, he got in that Bubba Wallace wreck, but he had a top 2 or 3 car at worst. We don't know how good he would have been had he gotten in that clean air and been able to hold it. Because, again, he started further back in the field there and then dropped back on a bad pit stop. But the guy's been lights out at 1.5 miles. Now, turning to William Byron, I like this bet a lot, too, because let's look at the past 2 years and just look at, I'm just going to list off his stage finishes at the Coca-Cola 600 the last 2 years. So 2023, 1, 8, 5, and then finished second. So 3 of those 4 were top 5s. Last year, 1, 2, 3, right? Because stage 3 was also the finish because of the rain shortened. I mean, we're talking of 7 results. 6 of them were in the top 5 for William Byron at this track. And he was, again, just like Brad Keselowski, arguably the second best car at Kansas, the most recent time we were at a 1.5 mile track. So right there with you. William Byron, top 5. Alex Bowman, top 10 are our stages 3 and 4, aka our victory lane picks for the Coca-Cola 600. So, Steve, it wouldn't be Christmas race weekend if we didn't give out some picks to win for funsies. These aren't like we think they're good odds or anything. They're just our picks to win. And I'm gonna throw a little curveball at you. Let's go with Monaco first, Stevie. Who do you got for Monaco?
Oh man. I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be McLaren. Give me Norris. I think Norris gets it. I think it's gonna be McLaren. I think it'd be one Oscar or Norris. I think one of those two win. They've just been so fast in qualifying and just so consistent. So
I agree with you. I think Norris is right up there. And you mentioned it's probably a 3-car race between Norris, Piastri, and Max Verstappen. Don't rule out Charles Leclerc. Really good here. And Ferrari is really good in the kind of the slower, more twisty, turny tracks. So I wouldn't rule him out either. But I'm going to go with you. I'm going to take Lando Norris as my pick to win. I think it's going to be a McLaren race. And I think he's just a little overdue for a result ahead of his teammate, Oscar Piastri. So let's move to the Indy 500. Are you picking Kyle Larson or are you going somewhere else as your pick to win?
No, I mean, as a NASCAR fan, and just how cool would it be for Larson to win the Indy 500 and have a chance to like do something that probably never happens again. To win the Indy 500, to win the 600, to win 1,100 miles of racing in one day probably just never happens. But I'm going to go with a guy that I love at Indy. I bet him, I feel like every time they go there, and that's Alexander Rossi. Always a fan of Rossi. Him and like Connor Daly are like two that I always find some angle to bet somehow. Maybe it's just because of the Amazing Race TV show when they were on it together. But Alexander Rossi, I always feel like they have good strategy, and he's always up there. Whether or not he has a chance to actually win or not, I don't necessarily think I'll bet his outright to win, but I'll find some type of angle somewhere to bet him by the end of the weekend.
I'll tell you, he's happy with this race car, and those Ed Carpenter Racing Indy cars are typically pretty darn good at the Indy 500. For my pick to win for the Indy 500, I'm going to go with a guy who, since he joined his current team, has finished in the top 6 4 out of the 5 times. And the other time he wrecked while going for second place. That's Pato O'Ward. I'm going to take him to win. He starts on the outside of the front row, so he's already got great track position. And like I said, he's finished 6th, 4th, 2nd, and 2nd in his 4 non-DNF races at the Indy 500, and just barely lost to Joseph Newgarden last year. Well, Joseph Newgarden's been kicked to the rear of the field for those technical violations, so I think this is Pato O'Ward's year. Finally, the Coca-Cola 600. Who you got to win, Stevie?
I think I'm going to go with my guy. I mean, I'm going to go Ryan Blaney to win the Coke 600 this year. I think that he just has that long run speed, and you need long run speed at Charlotte. So I'm going to go Ryan Blaney.
I'm going to go a little outside the box, only because I think this race could get a little crazy. And this is a driver that has the best average finish at the 600, not counting Josh Berry, who actually, when we're talking about Fords, I think he's got a good chance this weekend as well. But I'm going to take Tyler Reddick. I just think this race gets a little crazy, and he's really good at restarts. And it's just a little feeling on how the race is going to play out and how well he's done at the 600 in the past. But that is going to do it for us. Thanks for listening to this a little bit longer episode, the Coca-Cola 600 episode of Running Hot on Christmas weekend for you motorsports fans. Action Network's Motorsports Betting Podcast. If you'd like to tail some of these bets we discussed, look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. We'll be back next week to talk bets for the Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville Super Speedway on behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young. Thanks again for listening. And don't forget, there will be an Indy 500 episode of Running Hot coming out later today. And then we'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.